Hey everyone, it's Elaine Hamilton from the Reiki Center. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about the process of improvement or the process of growth. I think sometimes we can expect so much of ourselves, and we are our worst critics, and we are so hard on ourselves. Like we're much harder on ourselves than we are on others around us in the most case, particularly if you are doing self-development work. Like I know there are certain personalities that think everything is everybody else's fault, but they don't tend to find my channel or stick around. So for those of you who are listening, then I would probably say there's 99.9% chance that you actually treat yourself with a lot more, you have a lot higher expectations, and there's a much stronger inner critic that's going on, that you're not doing good enough, and you're not doing well enough, and you should do better. And this idea that personal growth is something you should just understand. Once you've learned something, why can't you do it? Like, I know this isn't good for me, and yet I keep doing it. What's the matter with me? So there's a poem that I often quote because I love it, because to me it sums up everything. And it's Autobiography in 5 short chapters by Portia. And for many of you, you will have heard this before, but this is the idea of autobiography, right, is the story of your life. And I just love the way that she writes it. So chapter 1, I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find a way out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. Love it. It's one of my favorite poems because I think it sums up our personal growth journey so beautifully. And it's this idea of we don't know what we don't know, right? And that often happens when we're doing spiritual work. So when you first come to Reiki, when you first come to therapy, when you first start uncovering what's going on in your life, there is this feeling of helplessness. There's the victim mentality. It's kind of like, this is all happening to me and I don't know how to stop it. And it's why me? And there's all this stuff, right? All this stuff going on. It's like people keep doing this to me, and why can't they just leave me alone? So that first chapter is the victim mentality, that it's not your fault, that you're helpless, that you're lost. And then you start to see things. So things through your practice, through your talk therapy, through your recovery, through whatever it is, you start to notice the patterns. But then there's that the denial that creeps in. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I can't help myself. It's an addiction. It's something that my parents gave me. You know, we start looking around at blame, and this is what happened in my childhood, which is part of the process. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong in this, but I'm just saying that all of this is part of the process. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because oftentimes we can feel that it's taking too long, right? But it takes as long as it takes, because in chapter 3, we notice it, we see it, and we start to see. And this to me is the critical point, when we see that actually it's what we're doing. These are our patterns. And because they're our patterns, we can break them. So whether that means putting in boundaries, whether that means changing the habits, whether that means putting in effort. And this is the thing, right? It's kind of like noticing, actually, my eyes are open. I see what I'm doing. There's a hole in the sidewalk. I am walking into it. every time, over and over again. So for me, the chapter 3 is the turning point. But then it's like this idea whereby how many times do you keep falling in it until you go down, you notice it, and you walk around it. And that is the big difference. So chapter 3, even though you see it and you can see it's a habit, there still might be many reasons why you keep falling in. And this is really the thing with personal growth, is that we keep seeing it, we keep falling in, and it can be very frustrating, this part, because sometimes there'll be certain habits we see and then boom, it's gone because we see it. It's like, what am I doing that for? And there's this recognition because there's a readiness for the recognition. And then you can almost jump, you see it, you walk around it, and the next time you just don't even go down that street because there's a deep hole in it. So you just go down another street. So sometimes when we're shifting the way we do things, it can be very quick, very easy. It's like we just have this aha moment and then we stop. Other times, especially when it's held with a lot of victim mentality, with a lot of blame, or with a lot of energetics, right? If you're held in something because of family, ancestral, or past life, or, there's certain lessons, or there's certain movements in the energy that are very sticky, deep cultural roots, all these kinds of things can hold us in certain patterns, even gender roles. Like I am fascinated by gender roles because I do think that as women, we fall into these very deep gender roles and expectations, and they're almost grooved into our energetic system, so hardwired that we can keep falling and falling and falling into the same hole, even though we see it very clearly. It's almost like we can't help ourselves. But at some point, we start to notice I can walk around it. And when I walk around it, I still might feel super uncomfortable because I see it. And it's kind of like, and there's a part of us that's like, we should be in there. We should be in there. It's a weird thing, right? But you still walk around it. And then eventually you get to the point where you're like, actually, I don't even need to go down that street. There's other avenues. There's other streets. There's other ways of doing things. And that becomes the big moment where you really start to shift, when you don't even need to go down that street anymore. And then that is the full recovery, right? That's the full letting go of that particular habit or that particular pattern. So just remembering this process, because I think oftentimes, especially when we're working through something really sticky and we just feel, I should be over this by now, I should be done with this by now because I've seen it. It's not so, right? And that's kind of why I really love the poem, because it's 5 chapters and it's the chapter 3 whereby you see it. So there's still 2 more chapters. And how long you stay stuck in chapter 3, where you're seeing it and you're seeing it over and over and over. And that can be habits. When I was younger, I was a bit of a nicotine addict, and I saw that it was bad for me years before I gave up. Years. I mean, everyone knows it's bad for you, yet we still do it, right? So the ability to see something and then the ability to act on it are two chapters apart. To walk down that different street where I'm nicotine free is 2 chapters apart. So there's the part of seeing it and continuing to get trapped in that cycle or the pattern or the habit. And then there's the ability to walk around it. So the ability to just stop, but still be entangled with it. So you're still being pulled into the street. And then there's the walking down the other street. So oftentimes when you're quite hard on yourself, when you're quite a perfectionist, when you're quite, I should be better than this. A really good way of being kinder to yourself is to ask yourself, if this was a friend or family member, a loved one, would you be as hard on them as you are on yourself? And I would guess the answer would be no. I'd be much more understanding. I wouldn't be berating them. And it's literally that, right? So think about what you say in your head to yourself. You're useless, you're not good enough, why can't you do this, you're so weak, whatever it is that's going on. And imagine you saying that out loud to a friend or family member. And then just like, sometimes it can be so shocking. You're like, oh my God, because that's what you're saying to yourself. So why? Like, why are you treating yourself so badly? Like, why is your expectation of yourself so high compared to others? And then that can also be quite interesting. Like, do you think you're superior? Do you think you're better? Do you think you should be better because you are better than them, stronger than them, more intelligent than them? This is also interesting to really get serious with yourself. It's like, okay, do I think I'm like godly, special, different? Like, why would I be, why should I be finding it easier than the average person or my loved ones or my friends? And there is this egoic kind of superiority complex that masks itself as victim or masks itself as weakness. But actually, what you're saying is, I should be better than other people. And that's also something to maybe get a little grip of and go, hang on a minute, that's a bit off. Can I not just have the same leeway as other people, as I give other people? So if I understand that other people struggle to change habits, to change patterns, to get out of destructive relationships, to whatever, if I understand that, then I should be able to understand that in myself as well. And so, yeah, keep this poem in mind. It's a beautiful poem, and keep the process in mind, because the process is pretty accurate, right? This is what we go through, and it's this every single one. So every single little habit, little hole, medium hole, big, massive hole. These are the processes we go through. Sometimes it's quick. Sometimes it takes a lot of falling into the same hole for us to learn our lessons. And so we give ourselves the same understanding, compassion, and love as we would for anybody else struggling with the same issue. So there we go. That's enough from me. Take care.